Hi everyone, hope you're well. It's Sunday evening, it's Mother's Day. So if you are a mother, let's say Happy Mother's Day to you. And tonight what we're going to be doing, we're going to be doing a rent-to-rent Q&A session. I know that there's been quite a bit of interest in this, so I've got quite a few questions that a few people have emailed across. So I want you to take this opportunity to ask as many questions as possible. Because that's obviously going to make the session as interactive as possible. And let's see where we go from here, and let's see how many questions we can get answered. So let's keep moving on. So first of all, I want to thank you so much for trusting me with your time this evening. Time is the most precious commodity, and I guarantee that will be the best investment that you make. So you're in the right place. If you want to follow simple to follow system to system, that brings you more deals. You're in the right place if you've hit a wall when it comes to growing your rent-to-rent business, and you're certainly in the right place if you're looking for some fresh ideas to secure more deals. So who is Arsh Ellahi and why should you be listening to me? It's very simple that I'm an author of a book called Boom, Bust and Back Again. And as the title suggests, it's never always been an easy journey. I've seen the good times in the boom, I've seen the bad times in the bust, and I'm back again to tell the tale. I've been involved in property pretty much all my life, but as a full-time property investor, I've been since the year 2000, so I've been here nearly 18 years. So you could say that I've pretty much earned my scars. I own a group of letting agencies that I've been running for the last 8 years, and in just over 2 years, I've built up quite a significant rent-to-rent portfolio that gives me quite a healthy cash flow of £30,000 per calendar month, which is, you know, over £360,000 in cash flow just off the rent-to-rent portfolio. So, if you wouldn't mind, the people that we've got online, would you mind telling me what's your experience with rent-to-rent? Are you completely new to it? Have you thought about it? Have you got some units yourselves? You know, what is it? What has it that has sparked your interest in this topic this evening? Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just give me a quick hello. That would be fantastic, and we can go from there. So the four-step, what I consider the rent-to-rent system is almost like a four-step property management system, which is very simply is this system turns you into an expert property manager. It's a system that gives the landlord everything that they want from their property, and it gives, which is a guaranteed passive income, plus a truckload of other must-have benefits. Rent-to-rent also, I would consider, is a system that enables you to make passive property income without owning a house. And as we all know it, this is called rent-to-rent. So just so you know, I'm asking you guys to fill in where you are with your experience with rent-to-rent. Are you completely new to it? Are you thinking about it? Have you got some properties already under management? It'd be great to hear from you. So what is rent-to-rent? Very simply, you manage the landlord's property, very similar to a letting agency. And off the back of that, you give the landlord a guaranteed property income, which is a better deal than what a letting agency would offer. Does that kind of make sense? And I broke it down into some simpler forms so that we can understand what it is, and how it works. So first of all, the four-stage process is that you rent the property off the landlord on a single let basis, which seems pretty normal, which is what a normal tenant would do. As a result of that, you get the permission. When we say the permission, you get the landlord's permission to rent out the rooms individually. You then rent out the property by the room, turning at least one let into a minimum of 4 to 6 lets. And as a result of that, you receive multiple rents, pay your single let rent back to the landlord, you pay the utility costs, and you bank the difference. So here we have it in a very simple or a graphic form. You've got a landlord that's in distress here. And he's worrying how he's going to let that property out. You as the investor approach the landlord. You say, "Hi, my name's Amy, or my name's Claire, or my name's Imran, or my name's Indra, or Alan, and quite a few that are online. You could say, hi, yeah, I'm looking to take your property off you on a long-term basis where we offer you guaranteed rent, you know, we look after the voids, maintenance, and off the back of that, where you take the property on, you then let it to a multiple number of tenants because you've then just turned the property into a HMO. As a result of turning the property into a HMO, the income that you generate off the property, you then pay the landlord his rent. After paying out the rent and after paying out the utilities, the rest is left as cash flow. So this is pretty much staying it. So there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of when it comes to rent to rent. So first thing is that you've got to be aware that you're actually turning, okay, so you're actually turning the property into a HMO. So if you don't know, HMO is an abbreviation for House of Multiple Occupancy. So there's two kinds of terms, there's licensed, there's unlicensed. And you've got to make sure that you get the landlord's consent because you can't do it without the landlord's consent. And the one thing that you need to do is you must stay under the council legal requirement to license a HMO. By doing it this way, you'll make more monthly cash flow than the landlord from a property that you don't own. And that's the key to rent to rent. We're simply controlling a property by making money from a property that we don't own. We've got no ambition of owning, or we've literally may not have the cash to purchase outright yet, but rent to rent has been a fantastic strategy which allows you to take control of a property from day one and make cash flow from pretty much day one. So why is it really important? I've put down here just some bullet points as to why I think this is possibly one of the most exciting strategies in the property space or the property industry. So we're going to go through these in a bit of detail. So the first one is speed. Don't worry, we're going to get to a Q&A session. I'm just giving you the intro as to what rent to rent is. So speed, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of waiting for solicitors, waiting for surveyors, waiting for lawyers and their lawyers and going through all the due diligence only for them to mess up a deal. Now, the beautiful thing with rent to rent, it can be done at the speed of a handshake and a very simple signed contract. You don't actually require the use of a solicitor to draw up the contracts. Yes, you will initially, but as a result of that, you can then use that same contract multiple times over. And it's, you know, I had a contract drawn up the best quite a few years ago. And as a result of that, I just keep getting it checked every so often just to make sure that we stay in line with current legislation. And this is the bullet point number 3 is one that really interests me, is that you can grow your portfolio at the speed of your ambition, which means that you can actually do this at your own pace, and more importantly, at a pace that's comfortable for you. Now, when you're buying property, it can be slow and a lonely journey. I suppose lonely is quite a useful word. The reason why I say slow is because it's all limits down to how much cash you've got available at that time and whether that cash is going to allow you to purchase another property. Does that kind of make sense? So, you know, you're going to need a 25% deposit. You're going to need legal fees. You're going to need a mortgage. You're going to need a surveyor. You've got to, and then as a result of that, you've then got to convert the property into HMO, and it moves forward this way. Here, you can literally go meet a landlord today, do a deal today. You can meet a landlord tomorrow, do another deal tomorrow, providing that, you know, yeah, you're able to negotiate decent terms and at a point where it's not going to cause you any risk. There's no reason why you can't take on multiple properties a week. You know, cost is a big one because a lot of people come to this, when I say this space, this strategy with limited or no funds. And I suppose that's been the attraction for rent to rent, because the beautiful thing with rent to rent is that it all comes down to how good your negotiation skills are. And when I say that, everything is subject to negotiation. So for argument's sake, the landlord might say that he wants a month's rent up front and a month's rent as a deposit. Then you may turn around and say, well, you know what, to be fair, I'm not too comfortable with paying you a month's rent as a deposit, just purely because A, it's going to tie up a lot of cash for us, and more importantly, on a property that we don't own. And second of all, I'm going to probably spend a bit of money on your property, which means that I'm going to give you the property back in better state than what you're giving it me in the first place. So you can, you know, out of the 38 properties that I've got on rent to rent, I think I've only ever paid one deposit. Other than that, everything else has been no deposit. And the beautiful thing with it is that it's a no excuses way to invest in property, because other than your negotiation, yeah, the negotiation is the key. But I believe it's a no excuses way to invest in property. If the deal doesn't work, guess what? You've not lost anything. You go on to the next one. You go and negotiate the next one. On a lot of the properties, you simply pay for the refurbishment and possibly the furniture if the house comes unfurnished. Now, there are lots of ways that you can actually combat that as well. So that's not even what I would consider a consideration. Furnished properties, if they come furnished, fantastic, because you can utilize that furniture. If it comes unfurnished, guess what? There are even companies now out there that actually lease you the furniture so that you could pay for that out of your ongoing cash flow. So it's not a case of that you actually even require that up front anymore. Whether it comes to what the landlord wants, whether he wants a month's rent up front and a month's rent as deposit, whatever it may be, that's the only thing that you've really got to take into consideration. If the property is in a really poor shape or form or needs a lot of work, yes, there may be some refurbishment that's required. However, again, there are ways to combat that. You can ask for rent-free periods to cover that, because, you know, whether you take the property on or whether the property lets it out himself, if the property is in that bad a condition, the fact is that it's not going to let very quickly. So you can ask for rent-free periods. So I'm currently in the process of negotiating with this landlord. He's got this property where he's had these tenants in there, these Polish tenants in there, and they've absolutely ruined the property. He's asking me to take the property on for 7 years, and I'm happy to do that. But I've asked for 18 months rent-free. Now, admittedly, 18 months is a long time, but I've also got to take into consideration that it's going to cost the best part of 10 grand to bring the property to refurb. So I have to look at it from a point of view. If I put the 10 grand into this property, is it going to restrict what I can do elsewhere? More importantly, could that 10 grand be working better for me elsewhere? Second thing that I look at is, do I want the hassle of dealing with the maintenance and doing all the stuff and tying up that kind of money on a property that I don't own? You can say yes and no, but I want to make sure that if I'm putting that money in, I'm going to be able to recoup that money first before I start to move on and pay the landlord any rent. So I look at it from lots of numbers, lots of ways, so that, you know, it works almost like on a scenario where, first of all, it has to work on all parties. If he doesn't let the property to me, the property is in no way, shape or form acceptable to even let as a single let. The boiler's not working, the boiler's pretty much non-existent, the house has got no carpet. You know, these guys have really damaged it. Pretty much every window is pretty much broken. So you can see from his point of view, he's got some real pain and some real motivation. And I believe that I can save him a lot of time, a lot of hassle, and to make sure that he doesn't go through that scenario again, because I would be offering a guaranteed rent and look after the property, and he's certainly going to get the property back in a better condition than what it is at the moment, because at the moment it's uninhabitable. Now, what I would say about rent to rent, it is pretty much a risk-free strategy. When we say risk-free, I'm very risk averse, and as the title of my book suggests, boom, bust and back again. I was on the brink of bust in 2008, and it was by the skin of my teeth that I saved my business. And I said that I'd never put myself in that position again, and that's why I like the thought of, I like the strategy of rent to rent, because believe it or not, when you buy a property, the only way that you can get out of that property is by selling it back. Now, the question is, how long does it take to sell a property on the open market? Well, that's like asking how long is a piece of string, because we've got to wait for the right person to come and fall in love with the property, who's then got to go off and get a mortgage and make you an offer, and that could take, best will in the world. You put it on the market on Monday, potentially could sell by Tuesday, and even then it's still going to take 4 to 8 weeks. What happens if that person doesn't turn up on Monday or Tuesday? And what happens if they turn up 6 months down the line, 8 months, 10, 12 months down the line? How many times have you seen properties on the open market for such a significant period of time? So the only way that you can get out is by selling it if you own the property. However, with rent to rent, guess what? House prices don't affect you. Interest rates don't affect you. And more importantly, it's actually easy to analyse the right property by researching the tenant demand. So you start backwards. So looking at which areas would work really well, and then analyse the right property in those locations. And success is only requires your focus and your determination. Remember, it doesn't actually require capital, because it all comes down to subject to negotiation. The other thing that I haven't put on these slides is that the reason why I really love this strategy as well is that with all the 38 properties that I've got on rent to rent, if I wanted to stop this tomorrow, I could literally write a letter of notice to the landlord and pretty much give them 1 month's notice, and I could pretty much get out of 37 of those properties. There's only one that I wouldn't be able to get out of so quickly. There's one property where I have to give 6 months notice. So on majority of the rent-to-rent portfolio that I've got, I'm able to give them 1 month's notice and I can exit that property. With the other one, I have to give 6 months notice. So my risk to that property, worst case scenario, is 1 month's rent. Does that kind of make sense? Are there any, so I'm seeing that there's quite a few questions that's coming through at the moment. Feel free to keep pushing them through, because we are going to get to the Q&A session shortly, and I want to try and get through as many questions as possible. So here's how it works. Let's just use this as an example. So a standard house, let's say 3 or 4 bedroom house, 2 reception room. So the landlord would normally let it on a single let basis of £1,000 a month. Now, working on the basis that it's a 4 bedroom house, 2 reception rooms, you let out the 4 bedrooms upstairs, you let out one of the reception rooms downstairs, turn it into a 5-bed HMO. Now, if you rent out the rooms at £500 a month, that now gives you a rental income of £2,500 a month. You take out the bills, so you give the landlord his rent at £1,000. You take out the bills, which on average would be around, let's just for argument's sake here, £500. I wouldn't say that the bills are as high as £750, but we'll just use that for the purpose of this argument right now, and that would still leave you with a profit of £750 a month. Now, let's say that you've taken this property off a landlord for 5 years. At 700, let's say it's £750 a month is £9,000 a year. £9,000 times that by 5 years is £45,000. So that one property is going to make you £45,000 over 5 years. Property that you don't own, you've got no intention of owning, and you're simply controlling. This now creates, as a result of you putting all these tenants in, this now creates something called a house of multiple occupancy, or what is commonly known as a HMO. And like I said, it all happens to the speed of your ambition. I know people that take properties on every other month. So month one, you take on one. Let's say that the average income per property, let's just say, is on average £500. So month one property, £500 a month. Month 3, so they've taken a rest in month 2 to get it operational and up and running. So month 3, they acquire another one, which means that they've now got 2 properties producing £500 a month each, which is £1,000. Again, they get it operational. Month 5, they take on another one, giving them 3 properties. Month 7, 4 properties. Month 9, 5 properties. Month 12, 6 properties. And at £500 a month, cash flow each, that gives you a cash flow of £3,000 a month, which is £36,000 a year, which I would like to think is a kind of salary that you can then leave your job, and off 6 properties, you could look after the portfolio and not only that, get involved in property full time. So here's a rule of 5. Rule 1, room 1 pays rent to the landlord. Room 2 pays the voids buffer. Room 3 pays utilities. Room 4 pays council tax. Room 5 would be profit. Room 6 would be profit, and so on. Remember, it all comes down to the figures, because you've got to analyse the numbers and you've got to be honest with yourself, and you don't ever chase the numbers. I work my utilities out on approximately about £65 per person per month. We have to look at how much the council tax is. You have to, put in a contingency for repairs and maintenance. You've got to put in a contingency of voids, buildings insurance. Who pays that? Do you pay that, or does the landlord pay that? On all my properties, I get the landlord to pay it because it's still their property and they still own it. Broadband, lots of tenants in today's climate, they want the property with high-speed broadband in. They will also expect to have a cleaner to come and clean the communal areas. We work on a basis of an average around £100 per room per month as profit. So that will pretty much give you an indication of how much you can pay the landlord. So sometimes you can work by saying that 5-bedroom house, I want to generate a minimum of £500 profit, taking into consideration all the costs. So there you're able to calculate what you can pay the landlord. Does that kind of make sense so far? If I've lost anyone, feel free to jump in and say, Arsh, I'm a little bit lost. Feel free, can we sidetrack, or can we go back, and we'll go from there. So this is your point now, guys. So we're at the Q&A session. So we're going to pretty much jump straight in. We've spent 20 minutes pretty much just going through the intro of what a rent-to-rent is at. Okay, so first question is from Kundan, and he's asked quite a few questions. Okay, so first question, and this is probably one of the most common questions I get asked. Because how do you ensure the landlord is not breaching their terms of mortgage by letting as a HMO if the landlord currently has property on a single let fixed rate basis? Right. It's an interesting one, Kundan, just purely because I've got to let you know that this is very much a grey area of property in general. Now, first of all, did you know that most mortgage companies won't allow you to rent to tenants who are on benefits? So if you're rented to tenants on benefits, chances are that you're probably in breach of your mortgage conditions. Now, the one thing that I would say to you is that if you've got it as a single let, as a fixed rate, the one thing that we always do is that I'm not here, I'll be honest, that I'm not here to say to the landlord that, I always say to the landlord that we're going to turn your property into HMO, and you need to ensure that you have sufficient insurance and sufficient mortgage product for the property. Does that kind of make sense? So in the contract, it clearly states that the landlord has gone off and sought advice to confirm that they have the right mortgage product and also the correct HMO insurance in place. Now, unfortunately, the problem that you've got is that if that landlord hasn't sought advice after reading the contract, and we give every landlord an opportunity to read, we don't get them to sign there and then, we allow them to take the property, the management agreement away. So there's quite a few different kind of contracts that you can use. There's contracts that you can use if the property's got no mortgage on it. There's contracts that you can use if property's got mortgages on them. So you can use management contracts, you can use common law contracts, you can use lease agreements. So it all depends on the scenario, the landlord, etc. And it also all determines on how long you can take the property on for as well. So there's quite a few things that you need to take into consideration there. But from my point of view, we always make clear from day one that, and there's no, there is no we will always put it out in writing and in bold to confirm that they understand that this property is being used as a HMO, and that the landlord must ensure that they have the correct consents in place in order for us to run it as a HMO. Does that kind of answer the question, Kundan? So in essence, what we're saying is that we pretty much put it back onto the landlord. It says, "Hi Arsh, I've been in property for a number of years now, just looking to explore this strategy now with some capital that you have." Okay, so Imran, this is a great strategy. The reason why I say that is that if you've got some capital to play with, it's not going to take a lot of capital to get you operational. Like I said, potentially first month's rent and a first month's deposit. I've only ever paid a deposit once, but other than that, there's no reason why you can't get started pretty much tomorrow. So okay, so another question, and these are quite interesting questions. It says, what happens to your investment and the tenants if the distressed landlord goes bankrupt in 2 years? In 2 years' time? Now that's quite a specific question, and I don't mind answering it. Got no issue with that. And it's very simply in the same respect is that if a landlord, let's just put this back on you guys now. If a landlord sells a property, if a landlord sells a property, and in an auction, how many times have you seen that a property has been sold subject to the existing tenancies? And the reason why I say that is because if you've got an agreement in place, regardless whether the property gets occupied or not, whether the property gets repossessed or not, you will still be a tenant in the property. There's still a contract between you and the landlord on that property, so that the mortgage company would still have to honour that agreement. So in essence, all you would have is a new landlord to pay. Does that make sense? And that has happened to me in the past. So there's one landlord, he had a property in Walsall, which is in West Midlands, and we started noticing it quite early on. So I had the property for 7 years. I think this is in year 4. And the landlord started getting quite a few letters from the mortgage company at the property. And I spoke to him, and he opened some of the letters, and he said that I'm going through a bit of financial difficulty, And so he spoke to the mortgage company, and as a result, he told them that he had a long-term tenant in place, and we just continued to pay them the rents, whilst they either decided to sell the property or they kept us in there for quite a while, knowing that we weren't going to be a hassle tenant. It goes, so another question's coming. He goes, what if the landlord wants to terminate the contract and wants you out after you put in the 10k investment? Now, that is not possible. Okay, so it's not possible. So there's lots of things that protects you from a landlord giving you notice. Now, in some of the agreements that I use, they can only give you notice if you have broken the clause of the agreement. So for argument, one of them being that if you're more than 7 days late on your rent, or if you haven't gone and got the correct consent. So for argument's sake, if you've turned the property into HMO and you haven't got a HMO license, there's lots of things, and you're clearly breaching the conditions of HMO regulations, then they can give you notice. There's lots of things. So for argument's sake, at any point I can give 1 month's notice, but whereas they can only give me notice if I'm late with the rent or if I haven't complied with HMO regulation. So I've never come across a scenario where they can do that. So I've kind of answered quite a few of the questions there. Okay, so another question that's coming goes, can you pay for the HMO insurance yourself and adjust that into the rent payable for peace of mind? Yes, one thing that I always do is I make sure that, especially for HMO insurance, is that before we take the property on, we get to see a copy of this insurance certificate to ensure that it has got HMO, that it is insured for HMO purposes. Failing that, if you wanted to, you could insure the property as HMO and charge it back to the landlord, or take it out of the rent and do it that way. So there are a number of ways that you can do it. For your own purpose, for your own peace of mind, you can pay for it yourself. Okay, so Amy has asked, she goes, "Hey Arsh, are tenants on AST or license?" We always give AST. The reason why I give AST is just purely because you can't give a tenant a license if the property that they are living in is going to be used as their sole residence. Licenses are more for temporary accommodation, and if you clearly know that this tenant is going to be living there as their sole residency, you shouldn't be offering licenses. So another question coming by, Imran goes, "This might not be the right question. I was thinking about doing Airbnb lets or room lets in London, but where the council will put restrictions on the number of days you can let a property." So yes, there are restrictions in place, and the one thing that you have to take into consideration with Airbnb and Booking.com, etc., you can make a fair bit of money out of doing serviced accommodation by running it on Airbnb and Booking.com. You know, there are lots of people who are doing it successfully. Is it as hands-free as people suggest? I wouldn't suggest that it is, because there's lots of check-in, check-outs, and again, with all the restrictions of the number of days, that there's a 90-day rule specifically in London that you can only let a property out for. So there are certain things, and you will have to look into that into greater detail. So, okay. So question. Okay, so sorry, I'm just going through a question. How can we convince the landlord not to ask for a deposit? Now, that's a good question, Emin. Hopefully I've said that right, M&A or Emin. So that's a simple one, because what you're saying is that you want to invest that money on the property as opposed to into the property. So you want to be able to convince them that you're doing it for the long-term basis. You want to be able to spend that money on the property, so the property will be looking spick and span, up to date, and in a position where you can let it quickly. One thing that you should also be telling them is that what's the reason for them to want a deposit? What security are they going to get from having 1 month's rent as a deposit? Fact is that 1 month's rent as a deposit doesn't really cover anything. Whereas what you could say to them is that I want to spend that money on that property, which is going to potentially increase the value of that property. And as a result, they're also going to get the comfort knowing that that property is going to stay in good shape and form, because hopefully you're going to employ someone like a cleaner that's going to go in and look after the property. You know, on a lot of my HMOs, we have cleaners that go in twice a week, or whether it be a Tuesday and a Thursday, or, you know, lots. I've got a 23-bed HMO. On a 10-bed HMO that I've got, the cleaner goes in there 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday and Friday. So, and as a result of that, they're also the ears and eyes, and they're my eyes and ears on the ground in that property. So if there's an issue, let's say light bulb's gone, toilet seat's broken, whatever it may be, they come back to me quickly so that we can rectify the issue. And as a result of that, the property is looked after a lot better than probably what the landlord would have done himself. And that's the way that we get around deposits. So, okay. So let's just quickly go through, just going through some of the questions, because we've got a load of questions here. Arsh, how do I find suitable properties? So that's one. Okay, so that's one of the questions that's come up quite a lot. So Vince, okay, how do you find suitable properties? Basically, first of all, you've got to find properties which are large enough. Remember, with HMO regulations, one thing I would say to everyone that's on the webinar tonight is the first piece of advice I would give you is go onto your local council's website and download what they would consider the amenity standards guide. And what that is a guideline from your local authority, which gives you the guidelines as to what they're expecting from a standards point of view for HMOs in your location. They'll tell you how big a kitchen needs to be. They'll tell you how many people can share bathrooms, how many people can share kitchens, how big the kitchen's got to be, how big the bedrooms are going to be, how many bedrooms you can get into a property where it falls under licensed or unlicensed. You've also got to have a look at whether you're in an Article 4 location. And if you're in an Article 4 location, you'll only be able to do it if you can get planning permission. So that's the first thing that I would do. And once you understand the room sizes, etc., that's where you can start to have a look at properties and see which properties are in your location. Remember, for this to work, it's going to be a minimum of a four-bedroom HMO. So you can turn a 3-bedroom, 2-reception room into a 4-bed. Generally, I like to go slightly bigger because the bigger properties generate more profit per calendar month. I don't mind whether they're licensed or unlicensed. A lot of people do unlicensed to stay under the radar. But if you're just starting out, you do want to go and spend a load of money on turning a property into a HMO, putting the fire doors on, and putting the smoke alarm and the fire alarm in place. I would suggest that you start off with a 2-story property and make sure that it is so that you can start off relatively cheaply and make sure it's the right strategy for you. Okay, so we've got one of the questions which has popped up quite a lot. How do you find vendors motivated to do rent to rent? Okay, we'll ask the question. We'll answer that shortly because quite a few of you asked that. So, okay, so one of the questions comes in, and I think this is quite specific to a scenario. It appears that it might be. Because what happens if the landlord does not do the due diligence and gets the right mortgage, and you've taken it on, and then he has to terminate you because he's breaking his mortgage terms, and you've put £7,000 to refurb it? This is after 8 months, right? So this seems like a real scenario. What I would say to you in that scenario is that you've got a contract with that person. Now you can still carry on the basis, you can still carry on that property. Alternatively, he's got to reimburse you the £7,000 to exit that property. So whatever it's cost you to go in, really that landlord should be reimbursing you to come back out, because all that stuff that you've put in the property will still remain in the property. So John's asked a question, goes, hi Arsh, are all your properties local to you? For my rent-to-rent portfolio, yes, they're all around the Wolverhampton and the West Midlands region. Now, with regards to sourcing rent-to-rent opportunities, the beautiful thing with rent-to-rent and the beautiful thing with sourcing is that once you've actually negotiated the deal, you then decide what you're going to do. Are you going to keep it? Are you going to sell it? Now, if you notice that on my, we sell a lot of deals every day. So that's a big part of my business that we do. Last year we sourced and sold 483 deals. And a lot of those were rent-to-rent opportunities. If you see your emails over the last couple of weeks, we've done a number of rent-to-rent deals, whether that be in rent. A lot of people said that it can't happen in London. Over the last few weeks, I think we've done 5 or 6 in London in itself anyway. So the beautiful thing with rent-to-rent is that once you negotiate it, you decide, am I going to keep it and do it myself, or am I simply going to sell it and make a fee out of it and move on to property number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6? And, sometimes people may think, well, why do I want to rent the property for 7 years and do it all myself, where I can make a quick fee and make some quick cash flow and move forward and do it that way without having to deal with maintenance, without having to deal with landlords and tenants. So, there is a completely different train of thought to that. Richard's comment said, isn't there problems getting planning permission to change use from a property to multi-occupancy in areas where there is an Article 4 direction? Okay, so Richard, yes, that is a problem. If there is an Article 4 area, so if there is an Article 4 direction in place, and let's just use a notorious area for argument's sake. If you're in Milton Keynes, I wouldn't even bother. Just purely because since Article 4 came in, I think there's only ever been a small handful of people that have been able to be successful in that. And bear in mind that planning permission can take anywhere anywhere between 4 and 12 weeks. And if you're paying the landlord for that period, let's face it, the landlord's not going to allow the property to be vacant for 3 months whilst you go off and get planning permission. What happens if the planning permission comes back and gets refused? Is that going to leave you in an even stickier situation? So you've got to take these into consideration. There are lots of areas that are not Article 4 and can still do this successfully around the country. So, you know, you have to look at that. You have to look at that. So John's coming with another question. He says, just wanted to know, do you use a management company to look after your properties? Now, John, for me personally, I actually own a letting agency, so it's not really an issue for me, because any property that I take on, I literally bolt on. I just said to my staff, here's another one that we've taken on, you know, get it managed, let's get it moving, and then we go forward from there. However, in your scenario, if you're just starting out on this, yes, one thing I would suggest you is you've got to have a look at your figures, you've got to have a look at your cash flow, you've got to have a look at your break even, and you've got to have a look at what the property is going to generate over that period of time. Now, bearing in mind that if an agent charges you 10% plus VAT, which is on average, you know, which is what the average is, you know, some agents charge up to 20% plus VAT. You've got to make sure that your cash flow can sustain that, or whether that's going to be an issue for you. You know, if you want a completely hands-off approach, then yes, you know, allocate a letting agency that can do that for you and look after the property for you on a long-term basis, because that is pretty literally taking a property, handing it over to someone else, they'll deal with it all, and you know, from your point of view, it's fantastic. You need to just make sure that you've got the systems in place in order to accommodate that. Okay, the question that's coming, is there a way that you can pay the mortgage company their component to the mortgage interest repayment directly to the landlord, so it appears that it's not disorganised and distressed? Yes, you can organise. You can ask that. So in essence, you would pay the mortgage company their mortgage directly. So you can. There's, you know, in essence, that's more so on a stage of a lease option, what that would normally happen. But you can get letters of authority drawn up where they, the direct debit that you pay. So let's just say the rent is £500 a month. Out of that, £350 a month would be a mortgage payment. The other £150 would then go to their landlord, which is their profit or cash flow per month. So you could pretty much put it in place so that almost like every month you're paying 2 payments out, £350 to the mortgage company and £150 to the landlord. That is possible. And if you wanted that for your own peace of mind to ensure that the property didn't get repossessed, then that is a good way of doing it. Okay, so here's an interesting question. It goes, how do you manage council tax costs if you have a mixed tenants group, tenants, students in a students and professionals in the property? How long would you generally wait to find a student only in a student HMO? Okay, that's an interesting one, because students, as you know, are exempt from council tax, whereas professionals are not. So in that scenario, you've got to have a look at a point of view is that it's difficult to split the two. It's difficult to incorporate the two into a HMO. I would either go one or the other. You either go all out for students or you go all out for professionals. Now, if you've missed the student boat, because let's say a lot of letting agents now advertising their student properties for occupation for August 2018. So if you look, there's loads of places that are advertising their properties but are not available today, but they'll be available in August 2018. So if you're still trying to find students today, you missed the boat by a long way. So I would then simply concentrate on the professional market, and if that's the case, then yes, it would be council tax as what it normally would. If you're trying to mix the two, and sometimes it does happen, you know, the council will then have to allocate. Let's say that you've got 5 rooms. Each room will be an apportionment of 20%. If you've got 3 students and 2 professionals will get charged 40%, and then the 3 students will get their exemption for 60%, and it will go that way. So, you know, that's how it's been done previously. Okay, so Miriam has asked a question. He goes, hi Arsh, how to best do a rent-to-rent for tourist accommodation project in London regarding the 90-day limit rule? Um, it's an interesting one, and the honest answer is that because I don't do service accommodation, I'm probably not the best person to ask. I know lots of people that could probably answer that question, but I've never done service accommodation. It's not something that kind of floats my boat. I know lots of people that do, but I wouldn't be the best person to speak to you about the 90-day rule, because the honest answer is that I've not done it, and I certainly haven't done it in London. Okay, so I think I've kind of answered pretty much most of the questions. So here's another question. When you agree with a landlord, how much maintenance do you offer them? How much maintenance do you offer them, such as do you cover it if the boiler breaks down, or general repairs during the tenancy? So now that's another good question, because remember what I said, rent to rent is all about subject to negotiation. So on the majority of my rent to rent properties, the general negotiation that I do is that I will look after anything internally. The landlord will look after anything externally. So for argument's sake, if the roof blows off, naturally he's got buildings insurance. If the windows are broken, because of poor repair, let's say for argument's sake, if they're wooden windows and they have literally deteriorated, then unfortunately that's an external structure of the building. If the boiler breaks, then naturally speaking, one thing that I tend to do is that I'll say that I'll cover that, but we then go and get British Gas insurance policy, which costs on average £20 a month, but I'll calculate that into my costs to ensure that we're covered for that. So, yes, we can put it in. It can be a daunting thought of a property boiler breaking, because that could wipe out a month or two cash flow. But on the back of it, if you have a British Gas policy in place, it's not a daunting thought, because all the maintenance and parts will be covered within that policy. Okay, so Abdul says, Arsh, do you enter into a tenancy agreement or management agreement? I always go into a management or common law agreement with the landlord. So, and then tenants get a tenancy agreement off me. So that kind of pretty much covers most of my questions, which is actually pretty good going, because we've just had best part of a half an hour full-on Q&A session where I haven't shied away from any of the questions, and we've pretty much answered. The only one that I couldn't answer was about the 90-day rule. Feel free to answer, still keep asking any questions. One thing I will just briefly mention is that I am actually running, if you'd like to learn more about this life-changing strategy system, then please allow me to tell you a little bit about a 2-day course that not Neil, but I am running on the 24th and 25th of March, 2018 in Birmingham. So what it is, I'm running a 2-day workshop showing you the fastest, the cheapest and the most profitable way to set up your rent-to-rent property. I'll be showing you the cost guides for furnishing and refurbishing your rent-to-rent portfolio, the top 5 ways to find landlords. There are so many ways to find landlords, and also, more importantly, how to scout for landlords. I'll be showing you how to elegantly persuade landlords to do business with you over anything else, or doing nothing. How to find an endless supply of tenants so that you never have to worry about voids. I know someone asked a question about the worried about voids. One thing that I've actually created is something called the rent-to-rent calculator, or the rent-to-rent cash flow calculator. And what that is pretty much is an easy-to-use spreadsheet that instantly shows your profit from each property. More importantly, it's going to show you your break-even points. It's going to show you what you can offer the landlord and how much you can offer the landlord, and what the cash flow is going to be at the end of the month, at the end of the year, and at the end of the period. You get a recording of the entire course that you can always refer to. You get the presentation pack. And as a result of this, we also offer you all the contracts and everything that you need so that you can go out and do this pretty much as of tomorrow. So you get the AST, which you can offer your tenants. You get the management agreements, and you get the guarantor contracts, you get the tenant movement forms, you get the furnishing pack. You also get, which is one of the key, how to market to homeowners, the marketing letter to homeowners. You get the marketing letter to landlords, and also you get the landlord persuasion spreadsheet showing them how much money they're actually really making from their property. The reason why I say that is because too many landlords get hung up with the fact that they say that their property is producing, let's say, £600 a month, which is £7,200 a year. Now, one thing that they don't take into consideration, that they've probably got management voids, bad debt, and maintenance. And once you take that into consideration, as well as the mortgage payment, they're pretty much possibly just over break even, which means that they're not actually making as much money as they thought. And so that's a spreadsheet that we've got showing them exactly how much they're making off the back of what they're actually saying they're making. You also get your hands on our proven checklists, so showing you how to refurb, furnish and fill every property with the right tenants, and which are those that pay on time and look after the property and never complain. When you know what to do, how to do it, and the right order, and a complex process becomes simple and quick. We'll even show you how to make your room stand out online, how to get you so that tenants actually call you first and will actually pay extra to have your room over any other. So I am running it. It's the first one of the year. I don't run them very often, so it's on the 24th and 25th, and it's £997 for the weekend. And like I said, you get all the contracts, you get all the documents, and you get the recording of not only this session, but you get the recording of the previous session that I did, which was the middle of 2017. So you can pretty much start learning from this as of tomorrow if you wanted to. You get the recording from the one that we did earlier last year. You get all the documents pretty much straight away at a cost of £997. The one thing that I do, and I'm very content rich in everything that we do. When I say content rich, I'm so confident that what we offer is content rich, so that you're not going to walk away without any questions answered. If you buy the course, you don't actually risk anything because you're covered by our 100% money back guarantee. And here's how it works. If you attend the first day and you're not completely satisfied, all you have to do is say so and we'll give you a full refund. No questions asked, no hassles or forms to fill out, and no problem at all. Now, here's a couple of people. I want to just briefly speak to you about this gentleman. It's a gentleman called JC. He attended a couple of years ago, admittedly, in January 2015. In 1 year, I found it hard to find anyone that has broken this record yet of any of our students. In year one, he managed to get 18 properties. That's equivalent to 1.5 properties a month, which gave him a cash flow of just under £15,500. His entire portfolio is in Croydon, South London. And here's his cash flow from day one to 18 properties within a year period. And this is what he provided me with. Now, here's a quite inspirational gentleman, Girish, who worked full-time as a consultant paediatric surgeon in Birmingham. He was on quite a handsome salary. He worked a stressful 70 to 80 hours a week, and he lived for weekends and holidays. He's gone on to generate within a year. So I started working with him in January last year, January 2017. He's gone on to take 10 properties in 1 year, and they're all direct to landlord, no agents, and he hasn't paid a single deposit for a single property. Now, Susie Bates, she's taken on 4 properties within a very short space of time, giving her a cash flow of over £3,000. And the question that I've got to ask very simply is that, are they any different to you? The answer is no, they're not. All they've done, they've put their doubts aside for long enough to give this a try at no risk to them, because if you don't like the workshop after day one, you get 100% money back guarantee. and they've achieved unbelievable results faster than they dared to dream. I've got lots more testimonials of people who have come on the workshop. And these are all, believe it or not, all on my YouTube channel. So you're more than welcome to look at all these guys. We've got Rory O'Mara on the bottom right. The one thing I will say to you is that on the workshop, I'm actually going to have people who are actually in some of my other training at the moment, and they're doing rent-to-rent on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to have people come and speak to you during the day. So there's a person called Jason who's going to be talking about how he's getting deals continuously off agents, letting agents. I'm also going to have people that who are out there getting deals directly to landlords. So I'm going to show you, so we're going to be giving you almost like an every prong attack. How to get properties from agents, how to get properties from landlords, how to get properties by writing to people, how to actually get deals so that you can call on the day. One thing that I am going to say is that if you're shy of being on the phone, you've got to be comfortable with getting uncomfortable, because I will make sure that you have to call people on the day. So we're going to do some live sales calls on the day. Now, the one thing I will say is that I understand that not everyone can attend an event in person. It's, sometimes life gets in the way. We've got children, we need to generate, we need to find childcare, etc. So what we've done, we want to include everyone on this. And so therefore, we've given you multiple ways of getting involved. So yes, you can attend in person, and I'd love to meet you, because I'm the person that's going to be running the workshop with you. Second of all, you could actually live stream from the comfort of your own home, which means that you could do this from home. You could watch as you're watching now, but you actually get to see us in the room. So there'll be a video of us in the room. You can ask us questions like you've been asking us tonight, and I'll be answering them with you. I'll make sure that you'll be doing calls as well, and I'll be asking for your feedback on that as well. And then as a result of that, if you can't attend a live stream, or if you can't attend in person, you can actually purchase a recording, which is exactly the same amount, because you get all the documentation, and you get all the documents, you get all the content and the recordings. And not only does everyone get a copy of the recording from the workshop from the 24th and 25th, you also get the recording from the previous session that we did, which you can start to listen from tomorrow. So you could start this from as early as tomorrow. Okay, so Ayo said hi. So Ayola said hi. She goes, on last week's webinar, did you say that we can JV with you without any money? Now, one thing I've just got to clarify one thing with you. I don't JV with people for saying that I'm going to put money into your deal. One thing that I will say to you is that anyone that comes on the workshop, if you find a deal and you decide that you're not going to take it yourself, I will help you sell it to my database, which means that, for argument's sake, the average rent-to-rent deal at the moment is selling anywhere between £3,000 and £5,000. So if you come on the workshop and you find rent-to-rent deals, I will then, if you want to, and this is if you want to, this is the beautiful thing about it, I will sell your deals to a database, and we'll do a JV, and it's a 50-50 split on the fee, whatever that makes. Yeah. One thing that you've got to imagine is that imagine never having to do a day's work for anyone else for the rest of your life. No more boss, no more commuting, no more pressures, no more financial worries. And the reason why I do this on a Sunday evening is because, I appreciate that Sunday is a stressful day of the week, because you've started to get your mind into working in the work mode of Monday. And, sometimes that can be quite stressful. You're out there, you're getting all your work stuff ready. But when you're financially free, you don't have to worry about commuting. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about what your boss says, because you haven't got a boss. You just worry about what you're about to do to make sure that you take your business to the next level. And this is where I want to be. I want to be able to help. Now, John has asked a question. He goes, hi, Arsh. He goes, do you offer ongoing support after the rent-to-rent course? Of course I do. Now, the one thing that I do, I'm very accessible on the phone. So one thing that we do is I'll say that for 30 days, I'll handhold you through the process thereafter. We've also got a Facebook group, and you'll be able to come back to me and say, Arsh, okay, I found this property. I've still got people that call me pretty much a year or 2 years after the workshop and say, Arsh, I've got this landlord, but he's being a bit tricky. Can we have a conversation with him? and I'm happy to negotiate that with you. So, you know, I'm not like one of these trainers that after you've attended a workshop, please don't contact me. I don't want to hear from you again. I want to make sure that you're a success of yourself. So I want to be part of that journey with you. So my question is, don't you owe it to yourself to give this a try? To learn these secrets at no risk to you at all, because there's no money back guarantee. There's a money back guarantee. You can actually grab this at half the price, because normally this is in excess of £2,000. You get to profit from the surge in tenant demand, because we are in generation rent, and you book your seat on the 24th and 25th of March, not June, March, and all you got to do is copy the link below. So my aim, so what I'm going to tell you a bit of a personal story about what my aim is for 2018. So what the difference has been, what difference has rent to rent made to my life? My plan is to help as many landlords as possible through the difficult times ahead. With Section 24, with people exiting the market, I'm confident by the end of 2018, my rent to rent portfolio is going to give me a cash flow of 50 grand a month. So that's quite a lot. That's 600 grand a year of a portfolio that I don't own. I've got no intention of owning. I pick and choose what I want. I pick and choose what I do, how I do it. And I want to show you exactly the same when you use this simple system. So admittedly, I don't run massive groups. So when you come on the workshop, you know, there may be the best part of 10, 15 people there. I don't run massive groups. I refuse to run massive groups. I like small, I like intimate groups where I can get to know you. I can sit down with you and say, okay, where are you? What are you doing? What area is it? How can we get you operational? And the aim is to try and get you, you know, if I can get a deal out of you over the weekend, if I can get you to go and meet a landlord, having you been on the workshop Saturday and Sunday, if I can get someone to meet the landlord on the Monday, that's brilliant. Like, I had one of my mentees in the office with me on Friday, a chap called Will, and he's actually, having been in the office with me on Friday, he has now got a viewing. Actually, I should touch base with him first thing in the morning, because he actually had a viewing on a property in Harrow today at 11 a.m. So it does work. Everything that we teach is stuff that I do on pretty much on a day-to-day basis. So there is still 5 minutes to, well, we've still got a bit of time actually, if you wanted to ask any further questions. I want to thank you for taking the time to learn how you can make a recurring property income without buying a house. I hope that you'll use the secrets to build a property business so that you too can decide if you want to quit your job. One thing that I say, and like I said, I'm very happy. I'm happy to take phone calls from you on the basis that people attend the workshop. You know, you can give me a call and say, Arsh, okay, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I go from here? How can I make this a further success? So one question is, so you've got my personal email address and you've got my personal mobile number. There's nothing stopping you from coming on the workshop and then staying in contact with me. So one person just said, can you put the link back up? Are there any further questions? Yeah, I appreciate that we're pretty good for time. So if there aren't any other questions, you know, I wish you all the very best of the evening and enjoy the rest of the evening. We've had quite a few questions that we've tried to cover, and I appreciate that sometimes we may not get through all of them, but tonight we actually have. There are a number of ways of meeting landlords. So when someone says, you know, what's the best way to meet a landlord? One thing I'd have to have a look at is you and your location, and what's the best method for you to contact them. So is it going to be by writing them a letter? Is it going to be by contacting them on the phone? You know, how strong are you on the phone? How strong is your negotiation? Is there things that we need to implement to to increase your confidence in doing that? So I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. I think I've pretty much answered. Yeah, I've pretty much answered everything. If there are any other questions, I'm always happy to have a chat. I'm always happy to have a chat. If you want to come on the workshop, it'd be fantastic to see you on the 24th and 20. I think it's 24th and 25th of March, and no doubt I'll probably see you all there, or I'll speak to you all in between that. So on that note, guys, I wish you all the very best, and have a lovely evening, and take care. Good night, and God bless.